honestly, like, even, you know, calling wouldn't be the end of the world. They're pretty deep, and, I mean, I think Dan with position is going to be able to outplay Leo in a number of situations.
There's also a chance you get in a good spot by calling with one of these 7 to 10 big blind stacks shoving, and then if Leo
You're saying if you would flat pre
then
and
you
then
just call.
one of the blinds shoves.
Yeah,
between,
they might shove a lighter hand than ace queen.
Yeah, calling has the advantage of possibly keeping in worse aces behind you.
Exactly.
3-betting has the advantage of possibly just picking up the pot here, not having to worry about Leo. So those are both would have been reasonable choices. I don't think folding is unreasonable either. It's a tricky hand to play. So here's a min raise with 2 jacks.
And Travell comes along again with only 10 big blinds now.
With at least 1 queen.
Well, our small blind Dan will fold. And our big
With only
blind
10 big
lays
blinds,
down as well. Looks
I
like
really
we
think
are
that
heads up once again to the flop.
Travell probably should be going all in with most of his hands.
Yeah, I don't think most of us would
Our
like to
flop is
do anything other than move in or fold with that stack size to an opening raise.
So when Travell's a queen, we're going to
queen
say,
of
oh,
clubs, deuce of
Travell's in
diamonds.
serious trouble.
we called the end of Travell earlier.
It doesn't
against
matter
Dan.
unless the other card is a queen. Travell's in serious trouble here.
Travell checks. Our turn is
I'm kind of surprised to see Dan check this flop.
Yeah, that's
you know,
very, I mean,
when you have 2 jacks in your hand and the board is queen high, queen jack, whatever, I would expect Travell to have a lot of king queens, ace queens.
and Dan will bet.
not only that, but there are cards that could come off in the turn that could scare Travell out of continuing.
Absolutely.
So I agree with you.
I think
Travell's
it's
playing his
Travell's
queen pretty slow here. He may end up getting away with this.
his super
And
short
not going
stack,
broke
I
somehow.
think, is what convinced Dan to check it, because you don't need more than 1 street to get it in.
Does that 10 save him, or does Travell have queen 10?
Yeah, I was going to say, Dan's not going to let him get away from this if he's a queen. Like, he's probably just going to shove a lot of rivers. Honestly,
sure.
this is one of the big downsides to not betting the flop, is that when he does have a queen and the board runs out scary, he may get away from it.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, if Travell's a queen and he decides to check the flop and a club comes, for example, Dan's may not get all of his money. Whereas if he bets the flop, he almost always gets all of his money, regardless of the run.
Travell's thinking about it here, and I mean, yes, that's a bad river card, but there are even worse ones that could have come off. So, I mean, Dan's really going to be kicking himself if Travell finds a way to fold this hand. Now, having said that, I still expect Travell to eventually call here. We know he doesn't like to fold. We know he's had to his top pair and has played it very slowly.
I don't know. It's kind of a situation where you might need put Dan on a hand like ace-king here.
Oh, and that's what may save him, is that ace-king got there in the end. That's what may save him.
You know, in your head, you're thinking, man, I slow played this. He doesn't think I have a queen, but what does he have? You know, you have to run that through your head for a second. If maybe Dan checked a hand like 9-8 or a hand like king 9, he got there. A lot of those got there.
Did he check the flop with 2 7s or 2 8s and turning it into a bluff? That's what Travell is going to be trying to talk himself into to make this call.
So we pretty much are assuming that Travell has a hand like king queen or ace queen here.
Well, at this point, we know it's not queen jack or queen 10 or
Because
queen
you just
queen.
think he calls
I think so,
much
but-
quicker. I think so too.
So yes, it looks like it's exactly king queen or ace queen. Right?
Also, jack 10 would be a big portion of Dan's range too, I would think. You know, a hand that might check the flop
Absolutely.
and then take this line.
20 minutes remaining
Is there a
in the
difference
12
between king
games.
queen and ace queen here if you're Travell? Do you call with ace queen and fold king queen, or?
Personally, I don't think there's a difference. You beat his bluffs and you lose to his value bet. What hands do you expect Dan to be shoving, wanting a call here? What value betting hands would be in Dan's range?
Probably pocket threes, pocket tens perhaps, possibly ace king. I don't think, you know,
Ace king is the hand that he's got to be most worried about.
I think Dan probably bets the flop more times than he checks the flop with ace king. Personally,
Yeah, that could be true.
you know, just because if I was Dan, I would think Travell might have some mid pairs.
This is
in
why
his
he may
range.
end up talking himself into a call, because we aren't naming very many hands that he'd be value betting here. His big pairs, his good queens, all those we would have expected him to bet the flop
I would
with.
think so.
And so when he checks the flop, it's either a really big hand or it's one of those other hands we've been mentioning.
I think Travell's going to lay this down. I don't think anyone wants to go out first this final table, and I think that river card is just scary enough to let him get away from it.
Interesting.
That's my read, just based on
You've played with Travell before, right? You
a
said
little bit, not a ton.
You have
just,
that advantage. You have that
just a
advantage
little
over
bit.
me. I still think he's going to call. But
He doesn't like to fold, and he has definitely made a lot of hero calls in the past.
it'd be a great laydown if he does it, and I'll give him a lot of credit.
You know,
He's
the other
really,
question,
really going through all the possibilities here.
well, the other question is, what is Dan bluffing with? Like,
Again, like I said, it would have to be something like sevens or
Sevens
eights.
or
where he's
eights,
putting him on
yeah.
a jack, like ace jack, king jack, even a hand like he has, and he's saying, well, when Travell checks back the flop, that's a mediocre one pair hand. He's not going to like this 10 on the river. I'm gonna get him off.
And I think that's honestly probably a pretty good line. You know, Dan is definitely capable of turning hands like 7s and 8s and 9s.
he does lay it down, Gags. You win.
You know, his body language there too felt
Do we
a
ever
little
see his
bit.
other card? Do we
No, we didn't see his other card. It had to be a king or a queen.
Yes.
Or, I'm sorry, a king or an ace.
Yes, absolutely.
There's just no other hand that plays that way. And I would put
It's
more
not
money.
a jack or 10, and it's not anything lower than a 10.
I would
so-
put a lot of money on a king there. Although we did see
He
Michael
flat-
under the gun mucked king jack, so we got that blocker going for us. I guess it could have been ace queen.
Right. And we saw Travell flat with ace queen from the small blind earlier.
Exactly.
So
exactly.
ace queen definitely a possibility. But you wonder if he's more likely to call ace queen and fold king queen, even though we don't think there's any difference.
I would
maybe
think
if he's looking at ace queen saying, "Wow, I've got top pair, top kicker," he may talk himself into a call a little easier.
For sure. That's
Yeah.
I mean, that's just a better hand. You might even convince yourself that maybe Dan is king queen and he thinks that I just have a jack.
Flop, yes.
So with that pot, Dan does move into the chip lead, and him and Leo are kind of starting to distance themselves from the field. There's a really big difference between having 22 big blinds and having
Look at
48
those
big
short
blinds.
stacks. 8, 8, 6, 5, 10. Wow, 5 players with 10 blinds or shorter.
And I think that that's, you know, part of the reason that you see so many short stacks is because of how late they went last night. I know that, you know, late into the evening or late into the morning last night, a lot of short stacks kept doubling. No one was busting, and when players get tired, everyone just kind of sits around and waits for a hand, and the cards kind of play themselves often. And I think that so many guys just kind of folded down to like 10 bigs, like saying, I want to go to bed, I hope somebody busts soon. That's why you wind up with this sort of situation with the blind so high.
Yeah, that and of course the money jumps.
Sure.
brings that up.
At this point, that's what's
Yeah.
keeping them around.
So here's a 6 blind shove with Jack 9 suited, and I think this was in fairly early position under the gun +3.
Yeah, Sebastian's really short now. He actually calls all in for less with 2 5s.
It's kind of a strange play to me. What do you
With
think?
with the 5s.
With the 5s, yeah.
You know, I would probably fold. You know, you were talking before about waiting, or actually Tyler was talking about waiting to have fold equity.
Yeah.
Also, when someone's all in, like, I'd be looking at this guy and be like, well, maybe someone's going to call him and he's going to bust. And I can move up in a little bit of a page jump here.
Yeah, with the 5s, if you're calling here, you're just taking your equity against his move-in range and hoping you win the showdown. Whereas if instead you wait to be the one to shove in yourself, there's always a chance, at least, that you pick up the pot uncontested, and that's enormous. You can increase your stack by 50% or so.
If they were playing like, if this was like a cash game with these stacks, I would undoubtedly calling with 5s would make him money in this
yes,
spot.
that's for sure.
You know, which is
in terms of chip, the equity, you'll have more chips in the long run in a cash game if you call with 2 5s.
Absolutely.
Here. But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, well, now it's a good thing you call with 2 5s.
Sebastian's definitely going to like that flop, and David's drawing extremely thin now. He's actually only drawing to a running chop now.
He's going to be down to about 1 blind, between 1 and 2 blinds if he loses his hand, which he now will lose his hand.
And Sebastian will double up, and Sebastian will find himself a lot more comfortable now after that hand. And as you mentioned, yeah, David will be down to, he'll be under the gun too, or under the gun +2. So he's not going to have many hands before he has to put that big blind and a half in or so.
Yeah, so the question is, does he wait until he's forced to put it in? Because he knows, I mean, even if he puts it in before then and doubles up and gets to about 4 blinds, he's going to be pretty committed posting one of his 4 blinds on the big blind anyway. So this is sort of a subtle situation with 1.5 blinds here where you might be tempted to just shove it in on the next hand, but you really don't have to, because even if you succeed, you're going to be getting it in 2 hands later anyway. So maybe you just want to wait those 2 hands. Now, of course, if you have anything remotely reasonable to get it in. But if you look down at 7-3, maybe you throw it in the muck here.
I would.
Yeah,
you know,
I would
let's
too.
see. I'm not sure exactly how many chips he has. You know, if he has 500,000, you know, I don't mind waiting and posting my big blinds.
Right, I don't
You know,
either.
kind of. Actually, it's funny because there's definitely a point where if you have 500,000 or 600,000, the equity from going all in under the gun is actually reasonably high, because when you double up, you have like an almost workable stack where you can fold through the blinds then. Whereas if you only have like 400,000,
It's a really,
you know, like
very fine line.
you kind of want to just fold and hope someone busts, and then
Yes.
you just post in your big.
And, you know, you're
hope
posting, you're
for
getting
it
in on
then.
the big blind anyway, because you're going to be putting in a third of your chips, even if you win.
Well, we'll
but
see.
if you double up to 5 or 6 blinds, like you said, you can maybe get through.
We'll see how David plays it. Like we mentioned, he has a lot of experience, so
So here he is with 9-4 suited. This is kind of a good example.
So he has
does
about
wait?
450,
He
it
has
looks
1.5 blinds, and he is going to fold.
I would fold. I would fold that
I
hand.
think I would fold too.
It's
yeah.
close.
I-
It's close, but I think I would fold that hand. I would see what we get under the gun.
I mean, it's a suited hand. It's kind of, I mean, if, yeah.
In a situation like that, though, you're just running 5 cards in pure equity, and you're probably only going to be up against one hand.
If it
most of the time.
Right. If it folds me in the button, I think I'm moving in with that hand because there's a lot more upside in doubling up, and then I can move in again before it gets to me.
Sure.
But if I'm under the gun +2, man, I think I'm just going to wait until I hit the post. Or unless I get, big hand here, of course.
Absolutely. So Dan gets a walk, and he will further increase his chip lead.
All right, I had to take a break there for a second. Did I miss anything, guys?
You missed the end of the Dan walk hand versus Travell.
Did he have king queen like we?
We never
We
found
never
out.
found
but
out.
We
It
really
had to
think
be.
so because we think. Well, I think he would have called with ace queen, and I think king queen was the more borderline hand for him to call or fold with.
Absolutely. Is
And
there
we
a
don't
chance?
think there's any other queen he could
Well,
have
is there a
had.
chance he's like
Okay.
queen 9 suited?
Maybe. I don't know.
Based on how tight he's played so far pre-flop, I don't think
Probably
so.
not. Yeah, I would agree.
And then there was a flip. There was a shove for 6 blinds with Jack 9 suited, and Dave Zeitlin called all in. No, sorry. No, Dave Zeitlin shoved with the Jack 9 suited, right?
Yes. He shoved the Jack 9 suited under the gun +2, and Sebastian called all in for less with pocket 5s.
Yeah,
Sebastian
for about
did
4
win the flip.
blinds, and the 5s flopped a set.
So we've talking a little bit about David's situation here with only a blind and a half and how he's supposed to play it. Guys, if you have questions for us, go on Twitter, hashtag Borgata Poker Live, and we'd be happy to answer them. Christian Ling asks a question about ICM thoughts. The first stream talked a lot about it, and he was surprised how tight they advocated playing. We've been talking about that, Christian. When all this stuff we're talking about moving up in pay jumps and David folding with his blind and a half and that type of stuff, that's all ICM. Moving up money and valuing your stack with dollars as opposed to chips is exactly that. I just don't think we have brought up the term ICM
Here's
yet.
what we're talking about here. Under the gun +1, David has Jack 4 offsuit with 400,000 and a big blind of 300,000. Personally, I would have folded this hand.
I would have preferred to have 9-4 suited than Jack 4.
Yeah,
although
exactly.
it's probably really close.
Yeah.
And Michael just moves all in. I don't even really like. Oh, I guess what else is he going to do? I mean, I think you could make an argument for just raising
call
or
maybe.
something like that. Yeah, call and kind of like try to disguise that you're just trying to knock this guy out.
Yeah.
And David's going to be in quite poor, one of the worst situations you can be in pre-flop with Texas Hold'em.
So the ICM talk, a lot of times people just assume that anytime the words ICM are mentioned, you just mean play tighter to move up the ladder.
That's
And
so true.
That is not what ICM is about. It's just changing the chips from tournament chips to dollar value. So if the payout is extremely steep towards the top, it actually advocates gambling.
David's drawing to a 10 here for a gut
David's
shot
going to be
try
down to his
crack
last
this set
card.
of aces.
He actually, even though Michael hit his set, that's actually a good flop for David.
Yeah. I mean, he still has 9% equity going to the river. That's at least something.
It's a chunk of his 14 from pre-flop, so that's good.
Right.
One card to come for David.
Given that he flopped the set, it's really good.
And
Well,
it's
he
a
doesn't
5.
get there.
And David Zeitlin will be our 10th place finisher. Our first elimination of the day.
Congratulations, David. It's such a rush to get to the final table, and then it can be a real bummer to come in 10th. But just know you played really well and made a really strong, aggressive decision to move in with the Jack 9 suited. I like the play.
Yeah, whenever you beat 2,800 players and get to this point in the tournament, it's an accomplishment.
Absolutely.
$11,000 for David. It's not what he was hoping for, but it'll ease the pain a little bit. And best of luck in the future. He'll be back again.
Probably play the main event next
I'm
week
sure. It wouldn't surprise me if he jumped into one of the events running right now. A guy with that much, winnings and that much experience, probably go get a snack and then come back. Try again.
We're in a funny business where you just beat 2,800 players, like you said, and gets paid $11,000, which is a lot of money, and we all kind of feel sorry for him.
And you're very upset about it.
Yeah, and he's very upset about it.
If you told most players, 3 days ago, give me $400 and in 3 days I'll give you 11,000, you'd be happy about it.
Yeah, of course.
But as poker players, it just doesn't quite work that way. So you saw with that pot, Michael moves into 3rd place with only 22 big blinds.
Which is kind of funny because that pot was tiny. It was a 1 blind all
It
in
was,
and
but
then
it
blind.
jumped him from 7th or 8th up to 3rd now.
Wow.
Hey, look at these stacks as we go around, man. Oof.
King 9 from
Leo in the
Buzz
steal
Gone.
position
Yeah,
has a big hand.
just throws it away, but it kind of works out for him because he would have run into a huge hand here from Leo.
Mike is down. Dan is out.
If I was Dan, I would be really playing back at Leo.
Ben
Like,
and
they
Rob
both have a
will
lot of
also
chips
vote,
and Dan is
Leo
positioned.
will take the
So
final ante.
if Dan starts putting pressure on Leo, he just can't really, like, what's he going to do? Is he going to try to put all of his chips in and potentially get, you know, 9th at this point? Probably not.
Yeah, I mean, based on that Jack's hand, it seems like that probably not. So.
Guys, if you're down at the Borgata, come play slots. They're doing slot instant bonus, January 22nd to January 24th. Play, win, repeat. Borgata slots. You guys big slot players?
I can't say I'm a big slot player. I did win $500 in a slot machine when I was 18 years old. I think it was my very first time gambling in a casino.
Wow. So this was
Arizona. It was legal.
Oh, it was legal.
Yes,
okay.
this was legal.
Okay.
I was down to my last $2. I was never going to gamble again. I've been betting $2 the whole time. I tried to bet $2 again. I messed up the machine. I only bet 1, and I didn't win. So now I'm down to my last $1. I'm like, all right, I'll bet that. I win $500, and I say, I'm never playing slots again. I'm done with slots.
But you
I'm
might play
quit
this
a winner.
And then you stumbled into the
And
poker
I found
room.
poker a few years later.
There you
yes,
go.
Exactly right.
What a great story. If it wasn't for that win, you may not be here today, man.
That's true. Jeez, that is scary. I might have a
That's a
job
great
somewhere.
Butterfly effect, be in an
That
office.
is a great story. So you're a slot advocate now.
Yeah, play the slots here at the Borgata. All right, Leo with yet another big hand. He's been dealt quite a few big hands in this short time we've been here.
Dustin at Sunny Hoff on Twitter asks us, what are the chip denominations? And that is a great question. If you take a look, so let's start with the smallest chips. The blue chips that most players have a okay amount of are the 5,000 chips. Those have been in play since the start of the tournament. Those are worth 5,000 apiece. The next denomination is the red. They're the cranberry kind of colored ones. Those are 25,000 apiece. Actually, you're going to see the 5,000 ones get removed reasonably soon. The cranberry are 25,000 apiece. The white chips are 100,000 apiece, and whatever that other color is, green or brown, I can't
Let's
quite.
call it green, I guess, but I think it's green and brown.
Yeah, it might be the two. Those are worth 250,000 apiece. Those are the largest denomination in play, and I believe only a couple of players have them. You know, the chip leader and a couple other guys.
If you ever get one of those green and brown chips in a tournament, you're doing very well.
You are doing very well.
And so 10th was also the same as 11th and 12th, right? Is that
Yes.
also correct? And
Yes,
our
that would
good
be
friend
correct.
and no stranger to the booth, Jamie Kerstetter, finished
That is true.
11th last night. She was the final table bubble.
It was, I won't lie, I was rooting for Jamie to be here. It would have been quite fun commentating on one of the commentators from
would've
last
been
week's
fun.
stream.
I think we were all rooting for Jamie. She's really
I think
one
most people at the Borgata
I think
do.
everyone on the East Coast was rooting for Jamie.
true.
She's one of the
This is
nicest people in the poker world and a fantastic player, really hardworking
And
player,
a fantastic commentator.
and a fantastic commentator.
Was there anybody
Buzzgun
else?
just throws away ace-5 suited. Dan's playing. Dan Buzzgun's playing pretty tight here with his relatively short stack, hoping that some of these other guys can bust and he can move up.
And
pace
honestly,
scale.
it's a good play. Like
Yeah.
I can't imagine shoving with that hand for as many chips as Dan has.
Yeah.
And, you know, even though it's only,
He could open and then
I
fold.
mean,
That's
he
a
only
little
has like
tricky
9
too.
bigs.
Oh, he's down to 9 blinds.
I
Okay,
mean, maybe he has
he's-
11.
No, if he's down to 9 blinds, that's definitely.
I think he has like 3.3 million or something like that.
If Dan were 9 blinds and everyone else had in the 20s, you would shove that hand.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and this is something
But
that
because
ICM
we have so
sort of
many
stuff
guys,
we
and
talk
yes, reason we haven't said ICM that much, going back to that Twitter question, is when we're talking about page jumps, as Gags was saying, that's all ICM, and then we're taking that into consideration when we're discussing why Dan Buzzgon should or should not shove with ace-5 suited here, and it really depends on the distribution of the stack. So with 9 blinds, it's often a shove with ace-5 suited, but in this particular situation, where there are a bunch of players with similar stack sizes, it makes more sense for him to wait.
Absolutely. And guys, if you want to join in, ask some questions, tweet at Borgata Poker, hashtag Borgata Poker Live. We are here all day until there's only one player left in this tournament, answering your questions, talking with you. If you chat, we will talk. Going back to Tyler's point about 11th through 12th getting paid the same amount. Yeah, Dylan looks like Dan is 3.6, and he wakes up with the hands here. 11th through 12th gets paid the same amount of money because this is a 9-handed tournament. Although when they get, or 10th through 12th, yeah. When they get down to 10 players, they combine to form one final table of 10s, usually called the unofficial final table, and then 9 is the official final table. First off, how do you feel about that? Do you think we should just play 5 and 5 and then go down to 9, or do you like combining at 10?
I don't think it makes any sense to combine a 10. I think it's only for tradition.
250,000.
I've had this debate with people before.
I don't think it makes any sense either.
Because somebody has to play five-handed anyway. If nobody
They
did,
both play. Well, if there's 10 left, they both play five-handed.
And if there's 11, Tyler's point is that
yeah,
one of the tables
one
is
of the tables has to play
five-handed anyway.
five, so you're
Yeah.
not stopping
Well, that's
that.
even more unfair.
What do you guys think of Dan with 12 blinds here, min-raising under the gun, trying to get action with his 2 aces? It looks like it's going to work against this hand, but what do you think of the play in general?
I don't think it makes a difference. Like,
It depends on your lineup.
it depends on who you're playing against. If you're playing against all bad players who might see a flop, if they're in the big blind or if they're in mid position and they get like, you know, king jack suited, you know, it's obviously fine to call, or it's obviously fine to min raise. They might do something bad. If you're playing against all good players,
They know you're committed.
they know you're committed. Doesn't really change their range too much though. Are they all going to fold 2 jacks? No, they're still going to put it in. If I was playing against all good players, I'd be much more likely to just shove.
I agree.
So great situation for Dan to double up
one
with
of the
2
best.
aces here.
And
Not the greatest
It's
flop.
actually a bad flop for Dan.
These sets
The
of
equity
aces
actually
flops
goes
are
down.
bad.
You never want to flop a set of aces.
Yeah, not when
You
you're
guys
all
might
in
not know
pre-flop, it
this.
seems.
This is advanced poker theory. Don't want to flop a set of aces.
So Sebastian's looking for a jack,
Well,
but the 10's going to end it,
Yeah, that's
gonna do it.
and that will do it.
Wow, that puts Dan in a
For
new
Sebastian.
spot here. That makes Dan fourth in the tournament.
River Bricks and Sebastian will be our 9th place finisher.
Congratulations, Sebastian.
Congratulations, Sebastian.
That's a big payout.
Sebastian will earn $16,773 for his efforts, and that will bump him up to just shy of $100,000. Keep trucking, Sebastian. You're going to cross the 100,000 mark soon.
and nothing he can do there, really. I mean,
No.
you say you know that Dan's buzz gun is committed when he raises under the gun, but it doesn't matter. Ace King is such a strong hand that Sebastian has really no choice.
No, there's really nothing you can do there.
Right.
So with that pot, Dan moves up into, looks like only 5th place, and now we see, you know, or no, I'm sorry, Dan is going to move into 3rd with that pot.
So the 6-8-8. Now there's some. This is very classic ICM situations where there's those 3 guys
3 distinct levels
are
of stack sizes, really.
very in bad shape. The 24 and 20. It's kind of a disaster to bust out when you have 24 bigs if there's 3 people who have 6, 8, and 8. So while I like gambling for the big top payout here, this is going to be a spot where you just kind of have to wait at least one of them out.
As a 20 big blind stack, you're saying.
Yeah.
I find this really frustrating as a player because my instinct is always to try to do everything I can to win the tournament, and then I come up in situations where I know I have to sacrifice some of that win equity for the actual dollar equity, and I try my best to do it, and I often can, but I do have a few 9th place finishes on my resume for this exact reason.
Yeah, me too.
I was calling it off.
All right, our cards are out.
I was trying to get you to shove though. That's the sad thing.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for the 20 big blind stacks right now.
Should we have one big blind only? No.
As one of those stacks, though, you can really apply pressure to the other stacks that are the same size as you, you know, by
Yeah.
reshoving on them and that type of stuff.
All right, and that
Yeah, and there's
is
huge first in equity too. I mean, if you can
we'll take a
show that you might be willing to play a pot, people are going to be really unwilling to play back at you. And also the other side of the coin, you can reshove over some openers with 20 blinds, and they're not going to be able to call you with hardly anything. They're not going to want to go broke.
Right.
No one wants to lose at this point.
The 250 big blind stacks can really put pressure on the 20 big blind stacks right now, both pre-flop and on the flop.
And we see Dan wake up
Buzz
with
gun
another
gets
big
aces in
hand.
one hand and kings the next hand. Nice life, Buzz.
So you see some of the players standing up. They're going to have a break after this hand.
They're going to miss some action.
But the 2 Dans are not going anywhere just yet.
So now Dan started this hand with, looks like about 23 blinds. Does he 3-bet small? Does he 3-bet shove? Does he flat? What do you think here?
The other players seem to have lost
You know,
interest in
he just doubled up. That has to, like, kind of factor into the decision-making somewhat here. I mean, Dan Walk, who's the one with the king-queen, might say, oh, you know, Buzzgon has some chips now. Maybe he's looking to play back at me. He knows I'm aggressive. So maybe he will view a 3-bet as not super, super, super strong. But in general, when he only has 7 million in the big blinds here, like, I would usually just call here.
Yeah, I was going to say, I kind of like a flat planning to trap. Looks like Dan is going with the small 3-bet option.
I mean, you have 2 kings. 3-betting is never bad.
Of course.
But I just don't think we're going to get that much money out of Dan. I mean,
That's
out of
actually
Dan
a
Walk.
bit bigger 3-bet than I would have expected. An additional 1.1 over the 6 when Dan only started the hand with.
Wow.
He shows it too.
Well, that's like the
Yeah.
hand you wanted to call too. It's like the
Yeah, he's
hand.
not happy. And I actually don't like Buzzgon giving out a little bit of emotion there. Like, I'm sure he told him he had a good hand. You know, I feel like you kind of want him to think that you were kind of like there and for the future. and maybe making a move, keep him on his toes.
It depends. I get that, but I think Walk's. I think if Walk's going to be making mistakes, it's going to be on the action side. So. Oh, so no, that affirms what you just said.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
meant. Yeah, that's absolutely right. You want him to think that you're lighter than you are.
Yeah.
I think it was just an honest reaction. I think Dan was just kicking himself a little for not trying to trap because he had him in such bad shape.
Exactly.
I think
exactly.
he was saying to himself, "Oh man, why did I bother 3-betting to a quarter of my chips when that was clearly going to look very strong."
So
But he's still in good shape though.
Yeah, they're both still in very good shape and in contention here. So with
So
8 players left, we're going to take a 15-minute break while the players take a break, and we will see you soon.
Chip leader now, Dan Walk. How are things going for you so far?
They're going pretty well. I'm running pretty good. I've had some big hands in spots where I usually don't have big hands, so it's kind of nice. So I'm picking up the right spots and running pretty good.
So we saw at the very beginning, you got in a pretty big pot. I mean, it's on the live stream, so they can see it. So yeah, you 3-bet with the 5-8 of clubs in a spot where Leo might have been light. So we all liked that was a good spot, but he wasn't light. So take us through that hand.
He opens big sizing, so I wanted to try to take advantage of it and 3-bet him a little light. And since I'm the second chips, I don't think he wants to risk his whole stack. So then when he calls, it's kind of like I think he has like 9s or 10s here very often. I mean, he could have like king, queen, queen, jack, and gets sticky because he doesn't like folding. Okay. And then the flop comes, and I just have to continue because I have an open-ended straight draw. And then when the turn comes, he can't call with a flush draw, and he can't. I don't even know if he's supposed to call with queen, jack for all those chips. So I decided to rip it and hope for a fold. If I call, I have 8 outs and hope I can get there. But I got the fold I wanted.
So that's a big momentum shift now. So now you're the chip leader, and you took a little momentum out of the former chip leader. So everybody's got to be kind of scared of you. What do you think? What do you think's going on from here going forward?
I mean, we have a lot of short stacks. We're playing really shallow now, so I'm gonna have to kind of open hands that I'm gonna be calling shoves with. So I can't do too much until we get a little deeper again. But I'll try my best to pick the right spots.
All right. So if you are not going to win it, who do you think is next in line? Who's most likely to win the tournament right now?
I think Dan Buzzgon would be my choice, especially after that double.
Oh yeah, the double. Yeah, I missed that. That's.
And he 3-bet me the next. He 3-bet me the next hand, and he said he had 2 kings.
So now he's running good too. So that's something you're taking.
Back to back. So
Okay.
first big hand.
You good?
So.
All right. Thanks a lot, Dan. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Taking the time to interview with us.
All right. Take care. Would I lie to you? Did you see the jacks yet?
Yes, rungood.com.
Yeah, did you see my jacks yet?
I was told. I asked my friend what you folded when you said you folded a big hand. I had to ask. No. That's a straight draw.
I don't like a fish now. I don't look like a fish now.
I have no problem.
Hey, Princess.
I'm playing my cards. What can I do? What am I going to do?
Make sure you tell me if my cards are shown, because everybody saying they're not shown.
I know exactly.
Yeah, you have to put it like that.
Have these spots. Anything is a good spot.
Not under, but